The Detachment Code: How Caring Less Gives You More. There is a paradox that the most successful, peaceful, and fulfilled people seem to understand intuitively, while everyone else struggles to grasp it. The less attached you are to outcomes, to opinions, to the need for things to go a specific way, the more you actually achieve. The more peace you actually feel. The more clearly you actually see. This sounds counterintuitive. We are taught that caring deeply is a virtue. That investment equals commitment. That if you want something badly enough, you will work hard enough to get it. And that is partly true. But there is a version of caring that crosses a line. A version that stops fueling your effort and starts poisoning it. A version that does not drive you forward, but ties you down. This audiobook is about learning to tell the difference. And about building the one skill that will change your relationship with everything in your life. Detachment. Not indifference. Not giving up. True, strategic, liberating detachment. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Difference Between Caring and Clinging. Most people confuse detachment with not caring. They hear the word and immediately picture someone cold, disconnected, and emotionally unavailable. Someone who has given up on wanting things or stopped investing in the people around them. That is not detachment. That is emotional shutdown. And it is the opposite of what we are talking about here. True detachment means you care deeply about the effort while releasing your grip on the outcome. You invest fully in the process while accepting that the result is not entirely within your control. You love genuinely while understanding that the other person's choices are ultimately theirs to make. The difference between caring and clinging is subtle but enormously consequential. Caring says I want this and I will give everything I have to pursue it. Clinging says I need this and if I do not get it something is fundamentally wrong with me or my life. Caring energizes. Clinging exhausts. Caring focuses your effort. Clinging distorts your judgment. Caring allows you to be fully present. Clinging pulls you out of the present moment and into an anxious, desperate negotiation with a future you cannot control. Think about the last time you wanted something so badly that the wanting itself became a problem. A job you were desperate to get. A relationship you were terrified to lose. A goal that felt so critical to your sense of self that the fear of not achieving it started to undermine the very effort required to achieve it. That is clinging. And it is one of the most common and least recognized ways that people sabotage their own results. That's the key. The tighter you grip, the more you compromise the quality of everything you are trying to hold on to. Chapter 2. Why Attachment Makes Everything Harder. Attachment distorts perception. And distorted perception leads to poor decisions. This is not a philosophical observation. It is a practical one with real consequences in every area of your life. When you are heavily attached to a particular outcome, you stop seeing the situation clearly. You see what you need to see to justify your investment. You dismiss information that challenges your preferred narrative. You interpret ambiguous signals as confirmation of what you want to be true. And you make decisions based on hope and fear rather than on an accurate reading of reality. This is why people stay in relationships that stopped working years ago. Why they pour more resources into failing projects instead of cutting their losses. Why they cannot hear feedback that would genuinely help them because accepting it would mean admitting that the path they are so attached to needs to change. Attachment also creates a performance anxiety that actively undermines the thing you are trying to achieve. When the outcome feels too important, too tied to your sense of worth and safety, the pressure that generates interferes with the quality of your execution. Athletes call it choking. But it happens in job interviews, in difficult conversations, in creative work, in any situation where the stakes feel so high that the fear of failure starts competing with the focus required to succeed. The cruel irony is that the more desperately you need something to go well, the harder it becomes to perform at the level that would make it go well. Detachment removes that interference. Not by making you care less about the quality of your effort, but by separating your sense of self from the outcome so that you can perform without the weight of existential anxiety pressing down on every move you make. You have a choice. Keep letting attachment distort your vision and undermine your performance. Or learn to release the grip enough that you can actually function at your best. Chapter 3. What you are actually attached to. Before you can practice detachment, you need to get honest about what you are actually attached to. Because for most people, the real attachments are not the obvious ones. You might think you are attached to a specific job or relationship or outcome. And on the surface, you are. But underneath that surface attachment is almost always something deeper. Something about what that outcome represents to your sense of identity and worth. You are not just attached to the promotion. You are attached to what getting the promotion would mean about your value, your intelligence, and your place in the hierarchy. You are attached to the story it would confirm about who you are. You are not just attached to the relationship. You are attached to the version of yourself that exists within it. To the identity of being loved by that particular person. To the safety that relationship represents against the fear of being fundamentally unlovable. This is important because it means that surface-level detachment strategies will only take you so far. You can tell yourself not to care about the outcome all you want. But if the outcome is deeply tied to your sense of worth, the attachment will persist regardless of the mental instructions you give yourself. Real detachment requires a more fundamental shift. It requires building your sense of self on something that does not depend on external outcomes. On your values. On your effort. On the quality of your character and the integrity of your process. On things that remain stable regardless of whether a particular outcome goes your way or not. When your identity is rooted in who you are rather than in what you achieve, detachment from outcomes becomes genuinely possible. Because the outcome no longer carries the weight of your entire sense of self. It is not about caring less about your life. It is about building a foundation stable enough that no single outcome can threaten it. Chapter 4: The Practice of Detachment. Detachment is not a switch you flip. It is a muscle you build through consistent, deliberate practice. Here are the practices that actually work. The first is process focus. Every time you notice your attention drifting toward the outcome, consciously redirect it to the process. Not what will happen if this works or does not work, but what is the best action available to me right now. This is not denial of the outcome's importance. It is a recognition that the outcome is downstream of the process, and the most effective thing you can do for the outcome is to execute the process as well as possible. The second is outcome journaling. Before entering a high-stakes situation, write down the 2 or 3 realistic outcomes that could occur, including the ones you are afraid of. Then write one sentence about how you would handle each of them. This exercise does 2 things. It reduces the catastrophizing that attachment generates by forcing you to engage with feared outcomes rather than avoid them. And it builds confidence in your own resilience by reminding you that you are capable of handling things not going your way. The third practice is the release question. When you feel the grip of attachment tightening, ask yourself this. If this does not go the way I want, what is actually lost? Be specific. Not the catastrophic story your anxiety generates, but the actual, concrete, realistic answer. In most cases, what is actually lost is far less than what the attachment makes it feel like. The fourth is investment without identification. Give everything you have to the effort. Bring your full focus, your full skill, your full commitment. And then release the result. Not passively. Not carelessly. But with a genuine understanding that you have done what you can do and the rest is not within your control. This combination of full effort and released outcome is the heart of detachment. And it produces better results than clinging ever has. Chapter 5: The Freedom on the Other Side. When you genuinely begin to practice detachment, something shifts in the quality of your daily experience that is difficult to describe until you have felt it. The constant low-level anxiety that comes from needing things to go a specific way begins to ease. Not because your life becomes easier or your goals become less important, but because you are no longer in a constant negotiation with reality, trying to force it to conform to your requirements before you can feel okay. Decisions become clearer. Because you are making them based on what is actually true rather than on what your attachment needs to be true. You start to see situations, people, and opportunities more accurately because the distorting lens of desperate need has been removed. Your relationships improve in ways that surprise you. Because the people around you can feel the difference between someone who is fully present with them and someone who is managing them for a particular outcome. Detachment creates a kind of ease in connection that clinging never can. You become genuinely interested in people rather than invested in what they think of you. And that genuine interest is magnetic in a way that performed interest never is. Your work improves too. Because you are no longer splitting your focus between doing the work and monitoring how the work is being received. The creative, strategic, and executive parts of your mind function better when they are not simultaneously running an anxiety loop about outcomes. And perhaps most profoundly, your relationship with failure changes entirely. When your identity is not attached to every outcome, failure becomes information rather than indictment. It becomes a data point in a longer experiment rather than a verdict on your worth. And that shift makes you dramatically more willing to take the risks that growth requires. Because the cost of being wrong is no longer existential. This is what caring less actually gives you. Not apathy. Not disengagement. A cleaner, clearer, more powerful engagement with your life. One that is driven by genuine values and genuine effort rather than by fear and desperate need. The detachment code is not complicated. Release the grip. Trust the process. Do the work. Let the results be what they are. And watch how much more of what you actually want starts showing up when you stop strangling it with your need for it. Let's wrap it up. You do not have to stop caring. You have to stop clinging. Care deeply about your effort. Care deeply about your values. Care deeply about the people who have earned that care. But release your grip on how it all has to turn out. Because the outcomes you are strangling with your attachment are the same ones that would flow more freely if you trusted the process enough to let them. Here is your challenge. Identify one area of your life where you are clinging rather than caring. Where the need for a specific outcome is distorting your judgment and undermining your performance. And for the next week, shift your focus entirely to the process. To the effort. To the daily actions that are within your control. Let the result be what it is. And notice what changes when you do. Thank you for listening to Akor Minds. Subscribe for more and share this with someone who needs to hear it today.